It's like approaching singularity. I don't know. It feels like to me the internet is like smaller than it's ever been before, and I don't know if it's just because my corner is getting smaller. It's like you have 3.5 billion people who use the internet every day, and everything just feels so myopic now compared to what it was before.
Yeah, it's like those Venn diagrams that the circles are starting to like overlap and things like that. So that's what I'm kind of feeling it. But let's get into our Rekieta situation. Wild that we are here. I've been following it since Aaron was with April and they started hanging out with Rekieta. And I kind of watched this thing crumble from the beginning. I had a front row seat, so that's been exciting to say the least. This body cam footage, obviously you're very frustrated in trying to get it. It seems like the county is stopping you at every corner that they can. Plus, looks like Nick as well is doing everything he possibly can to stop it from happening. Tell me about your frustrations.
Well, with the body cam footage, and it is frustrating because my home state's Florida, and I watched a documentary just the other day where they had Iwu, who also put in a media request for the Rekieta body cam footage, had put out a YouTube video where they had footage of like a 4-year-old being interviewed by police, and I'm like, in Florida they'll put out that shit, no problem. And then in Rekieta situation in Minnesota, they're pretty locked up about it. So the current progress with that is that they had quoted people. The Ojai County they warned that there would be several different angles and many hours of footage from each camera, and for their forensic team to process it, it would add up to this number of hours, and that would total to about $6,000 or $5,000, I think, was the original. And then I added $1,000 for the crowdfund. We replied to them, and we said that we accept this quoted number. Let us know. And we also put in a request for any requests for the footage, which is why we have that big binder of all those emails for people requesting the footage. We also FOIA'd the FOIAs, basically. And they approved that request, and they literally sent Hardin a thumb drive with all that information.
Who's Hardin?
And Hardin is my attorney who represents me in like 8 different states right now. He's also an attorney in Minnesota. He is directly a member of the bar for that state. So he actually knows a fair bit about Minnesota's processes, and it's very weird because he's spread all over. His home district is the District of Columbia, but he was a elected prosecutor in Greene County, Virginia, which is coincidentally the exact county that Ruckersville is in, and where Chris was prosecuted for incest. God, so it's a very small world. And what's really bizarre is that we didn't meet through that. We didn't meet through the Chris stuff, despite the overlaps there. He's also like an attorney in North Dakota, in Washington, the state of, and also I think for a tribe. He's like a member of the Cherokee tribe. Attorney counsel, so he's all over the place, and it's very useful to know him. And he's interested in the Rekieta stuff, so he is representing. He's done 2 things in regards to this. He's the one petitioning Ojai County on my behalf, and they have neither approved nor denied his request. They've just left it on the boiler for reasons unknown to me. He's also my attorney who intervened in the criminal case and filed the motion to make the upcoming omnibus hearing a public recording.
Excellent. And you've been turned down at every angle that you could possibly get with the county. I know that your attorney has also reached out multiple times to see where they were on processing that. Why do you think the county is not letting that body footage go?
Minnesota law is probably the reason. Unless there is consent. To give you a background, here's a case that I was told as a reference. There was a public robbery. A man boards a bus with a weapon, and he demands money from everybody on the bus. This is recorded by the bus's CCTV, and eventually it goes to I think all the way up to the Minnesota Supreme Court in regards to releasing the footage, because there were several passengers. Some of them did not want the footage out. Some of them did. So the compromise was that the ones who gave consent were, one of them had to give consent for it to go out. 3 of them did. Those 3 were unblurred. The ones who didn't want the footage to come out were blurred by the forensic team. So that by the structure of Minnesota law, it is probably impermissible without at least one of the people's permissions who was involved in the search for the footage. So it's not that they're bending the rules to block us. This is just the structure of how the law is set up. And for instance, in Virginia, when Boss Man Jack was arrested for possession, several people tried to petition that body cam footage, and they just said no. They said, you're not a resident of Virginia, and even if you were yourself, Virginia is extremely, extremely strict on body cam footage. And that's because all those said boys have their kids in Virginia, and none of the politicians want their son's DUI arrest footage to be public, right?
We had talked a little bit earlier. You were saying that there were the Fifth and the Sixth Amendments that should give you access to those body cams. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
So when I mentioned the constitutional amendments, I'm not using those as a reference for why I have access to them. The allegation, I think it was actually the Fourth and the Sixth, but it's Rekieta had alleged variously that his Fourth Amendment protections from unwarranted search were violated because the police forged. Effectively, he's very careful about what he says himself, but he's implied, and his associates have directly alleged that the police involved lied regarding probable cause to get a search warrant. And if they did, that would be a violation of his Fourth Amendment rights. Similarly with the Sixth Amendment, which is your right to an attorney, both he claims, Rekieta himself claims, so this isn't hearsay from Barn, Rekieta specifically claimed that April Imholt and Kayla Rekieta had asked for their attorney, and they specifically asked for Nick Rekieta to be allowed to present them. And by his arraignment the following day, which was the recorded Zoom conference that we all saw, he was complaining that he had not been allowed to see his clients, referencing April Imholt and Kayla Rekieta. Now, there is a ethical issue for if he should be allowed to represent his co-defendants, but his allegation is that they invoked their Sixth Amendment right to an attorney, and they specified that their attorney would be Nick Rekieta, and they were denied access to their attorney. So, and that's important, not because that gives me a right to see the body cam footage, but it gives me a right, it gives me a pathway with the sheriff's department. Because the only statute carve-out that I could find is that the sheriff's department or any other competent body, such as perhaps Health and Human Services, are at liberty to request that the footage be made public in order to dispel rumors, or I think the exact statutory language is to dispel widespread rumors. So if he's alleging that the government has conspired against him, has violated his Fourth Amendment right, and violated his client's Sixth Amendment rights, then any footage that they could release to help dispel that widespread rumor would be an avenue for me to petition for its release.